saddened because
ලැබී
ඇති ඡන්ද සංඛ්‍යාව 134යි.
Are you more like a CEO appointed by the Rajapaksas?
I'm not a CEO.
Innocent people were expecting a better solution, better system, better country to live under one flag.
Sri Lanka has a new president. Six-time Prime Minister and veteran politician Ranil Wickramasinghe. He replaces Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who fled to Singapore and resigned last week. In a parliamentary vote, Ranil Wickramasinghe got 134 votes. His main rival, Dulus Alaperuma, got 82. In his acceptance speech, Wickramasinghe urged all parties to sink their differences. He asked them to join him in pulling the country out of its worst economic crisis in history.
The economy of the country today is in a very difficult place. Young men and women are asking for change in the system. There are many problems in the world and we must proceed without getting caught in them. To go forward, we need to come up with a new program. What the people are asking of us is not the old politics. The parliament must unite in the face of these issues.
So who is Ranil Wickramasinghe? For many, he is a political survivor. The veteran politician is the leader of the United National Party, a party that once ruled the island nation. He has run for president twice, once in 1999 and again in 2005. He has been prime minister 6 times, but has never seen out a full term. Many view him as a shrewd political operator who managed to cling on in the parliament despite his party getting only 1 seat in the 2020 election. Wickramasinghe was backed by Rajapaksa's SLPP party. It is still the largest party in the parliament. Wickramasinghe is set to rule till the end of the Rajapaksa term, which is November 2024. Reports suggest he is likely to appoint his schoolmate Dinesh Gunawardena as Prime Minister. Gunawardena has been a strong ally of the Rajapaksa clan. While Gotabaya's departure has affected the party, Mahinda continues to remain in the country. Reports suggest he asked SLPP lawmakers to support the veteran leader. Leaders and protesters call Wickramasinghe a proxy of the Rajapaksas. And when our managing editor Palki Sharma Upadhyay spoke to him last month, she asked him the same question. Was he a CEO for the Rajapaksas? This is what the veteran politician had to say then.
Prime Minister Wickramasinghe, are you an independent PM or are you more like a CEO appointed by the Rajapaksas?
I'm not a CEO. I'm a Prime Minister. Prime Minister is never a CEO. A Prime Minister in our system is the one who heads Parliament and who leads the government in Parliament.
This brings us to the question, will he be able to unite the island nation, as he says? The president's deep unpopularity could trigger more unrest. Protesters are already calling for his ouster. There are even fears among some that he will crack down heavily on the protest movement.
I think it's a sad day, though. It's a sad day not just for the people of this country but for whole of the world, I guess, because it seems that the entire world is sort of accepting this most unethical manner of leadership, because this is someone who did not win an election. He's someone who was rejected by the people's mandate, and then how ethical is it for someone like him, let alone lead a government, lead a country, be the head of a state?
So what's next for Sri Lanka as Wickramasinghe inherits the crisis-hit economy? The new leader has already started talks with the International Monetary Fund. Currently, he is banking on bilateral aid to tide over till a bailout is secured. Wickramasinghe says he wants to unveil a new budget for 2022 in August. He wants to sell off loss-making state enterprises such as the national carrier Sri Lankan Airlines. The airline has already accumulated debts of more than $2 billion. Currently, his immediate challenges include sourcing fuel supplies and managing public sentiment. And with us on the broadcast from Colombo is Dr. Paikya Soti Sarvanamuthu. He is an executive director for the Center for Policy Alternatives. Thanks very much for being here on the broadcast with us. Ranil Wickramasinghe is seen as being loyal to the Rajapaksa clan. Would this mean that the Rajapaksas continue to rule the country by proxy?
Well, to the extent that the Rajapaksas still control the SLPP majority in Parliament, which gave Ranil Wickramasinghe 134 votes to become president today, yes, they do control. However, I think Mr. Wickramasinghe did make some promises earlier on, and the Rajapaksas too realized that if we are to get out of this crisis, we have to engage on the pathway to reform. And, for example, Mr. Wickramasinghe promised that he would restore the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, which includes checks and balances on the president in the exercise of his executive power. Now, things like that might also reassure the general public that all is not as bad as is made out to be. But he definitely has a problem with political credibility, with ensuring that the mass of the people have trust and confidence in his leadership. I don't think there is a question with regard to his experience and expertise in getting us out of the crisis or negotiating with the IMF, etc. It's the question of political stability, and that comes from them accepting him as a legitimate president. Political stability, in effect, is a sine qua non for any kind of change and any kind of rescue package out of our current crisis.
Right. Wickramasinghe has an uphill task before him. He has to get the Lankan economy back on track. What should his immediate steps be, and how do you assess his ability to give the country the financial stability that it is craving right now?
Well, when he was Prime Minister and then acting President, the negotiations with the IMF had commenced, and we roughly know what that package will have to be like. It'll involve cutting of the public sector, getting rid of the state-owned enterprises which are making tremendous losses on a daily basis, like you mentioned, Sri Lankan Airlines, raising taxes, cutting the military spending, which has now eclipsed the spending on health and education. So all of those things will have to be done, but the people will have to be carried along with the government that does this, or else there will be, again, political instability. In terms of the political reforms, I think very definitely the 19th Amendment restricting the powers of the president needs to be brought in. And what I would really like to see is the legislation for the abolition of the executive president also be put in train. In addition to that, I think he also needs to give us a timetable of when we will move to elections, rather than have to wait for the 2.5 odd years for the next presidential and general elections. It's only once we have a fresh set of parliamentarians, legislators, that really we can embark on a proper reform package, which in the end will get us out of the terrible, horrendous mess that we've got ourselves into.
We're leaving it there for the moment. Thanks very much for joining us here on the broadcast and sharing those perspectives.
Thank you.
WION now available in your country. Download the app now. Get all the news on the move.